Mom is unconscious! The phone call from my brother during work was shocking. Our mother, who lives alone, resides near my brother's place. Being a worrier, my brother checks on her whenever he has time. Today, after finishing work, he stopped by our childhood home. He had called her before heading over, and she said she would prepare food for him. Yet, there was no response at the intercom, so he thought something was wrong and unlocked the door. He found our mother collapsed in the kitchen and quickly called an ambulance. My name is Susan. I'm 32 years old and work as a staff at an electronics store. Our father passed away from an illness about 5 years ago, leaving our mother living alone in our childhood home. I have been living alone because I often work overtime, and it's more convenient to be close to work. It's only about a 10-minute train ride to our childhood home, so I visit about once a month. Just recently, I saw our mother in good health at home. Despite that, I rushed to the hospital after hearing she had suddenly been taken there by ambulance. At the hospital, I met up with my brother, and when we entered our mother's room, the doctor soon came in and told us she had passed away. The cause was a heart attack. I was stunned, unable to accept the reality, but I couldn't dwell on my sadness. Unlike our father's illness-related death, I had never even considered the sudden loss of our mother, so there were many things to do for the funeral. By the time we finished the funeral, both my brother and I were exhausted. After that, we decided to split up and handle various procedures. First, we went to our childhood home to sort through our mother's belongings. As my brother and I were heading there, I spotted a cell phone store. Come to think of it, we need to cancel Mom's cell phone plan, right? I'll ask what we need to do. I could have called and asked later, but since it was on our way back, we decided to stop by. The cell phone store was busy when we arrived. On second thought, it was peak season. The store had a big promotion for student discounts, and none of the staff paid any attention to us. Did they think we had no business there because we weren't students? Slightly annoyed, my brother and I entered the store. I was approached by a staff who looked like an information staff, so I said, "I'd like to ask you about cancellation?" The female staff made a blatantly disgusted face. "You want to cancel? Please wait a moment." She seemed a bit younger than me, but her attitude was quite rude. I just wanted to ask about the required documents, but she was busy, so it couldn't be helped. My brother and I waited, and I noticed the same female staff member treating a parent and student with a bow and a smile. Sure, cancellations might not generate revenue, but we were longtime customers, so at least they could treat us fairly. My brother remarked that it was busy and started looking up information about bank cancellations on his smartphone. The other staff members were also busy, and the guide blatantly ignored us. I couldn't take it anymore and decided to speak to the female staff member again. "My mother passed away, so we want to cancel her plan. If you could just tell us the required documents, we'll gather them and come back. How soon can you help us with that?" Though I was upset, I'm a working adult too. I tried to convey my message as politely and concisely as possible. Then the female staff said, "The person themselves should come for the cancellation. Just bring a driver's license." I wanted to say, "Were you even listening?" But I held back. "So my mother has passed away, and we want to cancel on her behalf." As I said that, the female staff furrowed her brow. "As I said, we can't cancel it without the person themselves." Frustrated, I snapped, "I told you, she's deceased." Then the female staff laughed and said, "Well then, bring her bones." She made a shooing gesture. There was no point in staying here any longer. Let's just go home for now. My brother seemed upset as well. I glared at her and left the store with my brother. I thought about talking back, but we were near our family home, and I didn't want to cause a scene in front of the neighbors, so I held back for now. A few days later, we went to the cell phone shop again. We didn't want to be charged for another month, so we wanted to cancel as soon as possible. Since I work at an electronics store, I asked a colleague in the mobile department to look into it and gather the necessary documents. Our electronics store couldn't handle the cancellation process, but if we take a death certificate to the shop, they would accept it. I sometimes see customers complaining about not being able to cancel at our store, and I finally understood how they felt. I never thought about the differences between mobile shops before. We were still in the process of cleaning up our family home, so I met up with my brother there, and we headed straight to the cell phone shop. We considered going to another shop, but it wasn't our fault, so why should we have to accommodate them? Plus, other shops were far away. We entered the shop, hoping that the female staff from before wouldn't be there. However, she was the one greeting customers again. She seemed to have forgotten about us, so when I said, "We were here before, and our mother passed away, so we came to cancel her cell phone," the female staff looked shocked as she looked at my face. "I brought the necessary documents, so please, proceed." As I said that, she put her hand on the earpiece she was wearing. By the way, the earpiece is a type of small radio, which I also wear at work. She reluctantly led us to a table. She probably received instructions from her supervisor to do so. I wanted someone else to handle it, but we just wanted to get this over with and leave. As soon as I thought that, she sat down with a mocking smile. "I told you last time, right? We can't cancel without the person themselves. So where's your mother? Is she just invisible to me or something?" What's with that attitude? Just before I snapped, my brother held me back. I didn't understand why, but my brother calmly said, "We brought the person themselves," and placed a bag on the table. The female staff looked into the bag with a mocking expression. My brother silently opened the bag. Inside was the female staff didn't seem to know what it was, so she leaned in with a puzzled expression. My brother opened the lid and said, "These are her bones." The next moment, the female staff member said, "Phew!" and fell from the high chair she was sitting on. An incredibly loud noise occurred, and another male staff rushed over. The male staff seemed flustered, but the female staff's face turned pale, and she didn't speak. I said to the female staff, "Could you stop making that face as if you've seen a ghost? Is this your first time seeing cremated remains? But you're the one who told me to bring them, right?" Then the male staff began to bow his head. Apparently, he was the store manager. When I told the manager what I had been told earlier, he bowed his head again. As I spoke to the manager, the store became crowded. I told the manager, "Please go and attend to other customers. It's just a contract cancellation, and it will be over quickly if this person takes care of it." Although the manager seemed confused, he was called on his walkie-talkie and, in a strict tone, told the female staff to do her job properly before going to attend to other customers. I placed my mother's cell phone next to the opened, "So, I want to cancel this." When I said that, the female staff hurriedly said, "Please put the remains away quickly." But my brother spoke nonchalantly. "It's okay, I'm not doing anything bad. Besides, you're the one who told me to bring the remains. My mother will watch over us too." I couldn't help but laugh at his words. The female staff glared at me and said, "Show me your driver's license." "Whose? Mine? My mother's?" I placed both my mother's and my driver's licenses on the table. I also lined up the death certificate and the credit card my mother used for automatic withdrawal. The female staff took all of them without saying a word and left the table. I stopped her. "Wait, don't just take them without asking. What are you using them for? You told me to show my driver's license, but you didn't tell me the purpose." "Oh, it's to confirm customer information." The female staff muttered and didn't come back, so I said, "Aren't you supposed to do that in front of us? That's what everyone else does, right? Isn't that a compliance violation?" Compliance means abiding by laws and regulations. Simply put, it's showing customers that our company follows laws and social rules. I deal with customers' personal information in my job, so I'm constantly being nagged about compliance. It's even more strict in a cell phone shop that handles a lot of personal information, but this female staff showed no sense of urgency. I was also irritated by that. But she flinched when she heard the word compliance. The saleswoman hastily brought back the personal information she took, and brought a terminal where I can view the contract information instead. By the way, my brother, being aware of the surroundings, quickly puts away the and gives the female staff a cold look. The female staff seems to be concerned about the customers entering the store while dealing with us, and the conversation is not progressing smoothly. Then she says, "There will be an annual contract cancellation fee, which will be billed next month." However, I had checked with a person in charge of cell phones at my workplace that it would be waived. So I asked, "I heard that it would be waived if the contract holder passed away. Is that true?" Upon hearing this, she starts to look into it in a hurry. I sigh and take out my smartphone. I open the inquiry page on the cell phone company's website and show the official answer to the female staff. The female staff looks up and says, "Then it won't be charged, I guess," which irritated me. "Excuse me, what's with that attitude?" I couldn't help but say that, and she glared at me, but I continued. "I have no reason to be glared at for your lack of knowledge, and I've noticed you've been looking at other customers since earlier. Isn't that rude?" I heard this from the person in charge of cell phones at my workplace as well, that staff sales performance only counts when they acquire new customers. That doesn't mean they should have such an attitude towards other customers. I try to stay as calm as possible and continue. You may think of me as a complainer, but I'm not. All you need to do is to handle this cancellation process quickly and accurately. I've been thinking this for a while, but your attitude is just terrible. I just wanted to cancel the contract, but since I couldn't finish and go home, I was irritated and ended up speaking in a strong tone. When I calmed down, I feel a little guilty. But then, I was completely astonished by the female staff's next attitude. You're a complainer, aren't you? It's not normal to bring ashes. You said you brought the person themselves, but what can you do with those ashes? She said that with a laugh. My brother, who had been sitting quietly until now, seemed to be getting angry and tried to stand up. The next moment, a loud voice echoed throughout the store. Bring me the guy who deceived me right now! It was a man in his late 20s who looked a bit rough. As soon as he entered the store, he started yelling at the receptionist. He looked around and didn't listen to the receptionist trying to stop him and headed our way. Could it be? As I thought, the man came close to our table and glared at the female staff, asking, How much longer will it take for you to finish with these customers? She turned pale and didn't say a word. I was a little curious, so I said, We just want to cancel our contract, but it's not progressing very well. However, if it's just a conversation, please go ahead. To my surprise, the man looked apologetic and declined my offer. But for some reason, my brother picked up his belongings and moved to the waiting sofa just behind us. When I looked at my brother's face, he seemed to be enjoying himself. I followed my brother's lead and caught the eye of a male customer. He nodded slightly and stood in front of a female staff. Just as I wondered what was about to happen, the male customer began speaking harshly to the saleswoman. The other salespeople were busy with customers, and the greeters seemed to be new and flustered, so nobody stepped in to stop the man. From what I could hear, he had signed a new contract a week ago and was angry because the content of the contract was different from what he had discussed, and he had been given many options without his consent. I had heard that such misunderstandings were common at our store's cell phone department, so at first I thought the male customer might be mistaken. But then the saleswoman said something outrageous. That kind of minimum fee doesn't help my performance. Since you signed the contract, can you stop complaining? I then remembered something. At our store, we have seen similar complaints, but to prepare for such trouble, we properly write down the contract details and hand them to the customers. Even if there's a complaint, that serves as evidence, and after explaining to the customer again, they usually calm down and accept that they misunderstood. But I don't know if it's just this store or this saleswoman, but there seemed to be no such measures in place, and it seems that the saleswoman ignored the customer's wishes and acted on her own. Of course, he had every right to be angry. I was already surprised enough, but then the saleswoman suddenly got up as if remembering something. As we were taken aback, she quickly returned. She had a driver's license in her hand. I forgot to return this the other day. I'll give this back to you, so please just leave. It appeared to be the male customer's driver's license. The man was furious again at her unapologetic attitude. I was searching everywhere for it, thinking I had lost it somewhere. You should have contacted me when you realized. What's wrong with you? Is this staff insane? The store manager, who had just finished seeing off other customers, rushed over. He apologized profusely, but of course, it was not a problem that could be forgiven with an apology. The manager took the saleswoman to the back for a moment. Then, the male customer apologized to me, and as we engaged in a light conversation, he said, You seem to know a lot. Are you a cell phone person? I told him that I was a salesperson at an electronics store, and the male customer seemed satisfied with that answer. At first, I thought he looked tough and scary, but after talking to him, he was surprisingly normal and even apologized for surprising me earlier. My brother, hearing this, said to the man, No, I'm sorry my sister scared you. To which I glared at my brother, and the male customer burst out laughing. After a while, only the manager returned and apologized again. He told the male customer that they would like to verify the facts and take appropriate action after contacting him later. The male customer sighed, nodded to us, and left. We asked the manager to process our cancellation, and it was done in just a few minutes. What was all that time for? We also sighed and left the store. Later, we received a customer service survey from the cell phone company, So we gave the lowest rating and wrote everything that happened in the free comment section. I thought it was a small act of revenge, but when I later talked to the person in charge of mobile phones, they told me that it was uncommon to receive such a low rating and the staff would probably get a serious reprimand. Knowing that, my mood brightened a bit. About 2 weeks later, while I was working, I was approached for product information, and to my surprise, it was the male customer from that day. He recognized me too and told me what happened afterward. The manager had contacted him, and the female staff had been let go, and he was offered a refund and a few months of free basic charges. It seemed like compensation for the inconvenience. Since then, that man would occasionally visit the store, and we would chat whenever we met. After some time, he told me that he saw the female staff in front of the mobile phone shop. She was apparently begging the manager outside the store, saying she couldn't make a living without a job, that she had been kicked out of her apartment, and pleading to be hired again. But the manager firmly rejected her. I couldn't help but laugh when I heard this. Later on, I happened to run into him near my parents' house, and we exchanged greetings. We laughed about the strange connection and exchanged contact information. Then, to my surprise, he asked me out, and I accepted. Thanks to that, both my work and private life have become fulfilling.